The ice cracked under Hyunwoo's boots as he walked across the frozen surface of Europa. The small moon orbited Jupiter, like a white marble spinning around a giant orange ball. His breath came out in white puffs even inside his heated suit. Behind him, 3 other people followed in a straight line across the endless ice. "The readings are getting stronger," So-young said through the radio. She carried a heavy scanner that beeped faster with each step. "Whatever is down there, it's big." Hyunwoo stopped and looked at his instruments. He had been studying old things for 20 years, but he had never seen energy readings like these. The signals came from deep under the ice, deeper than anything. "Should be able to survive on this frozen moon." "How deep do you think it goes?" asked Daeho. The geologist knelt down and pressed his gloved hand against the ice. "This ice should be solid all the way down to the rock. Nothing could live under here." Ji-hai stood nearby, watching the horizon with her weapon ready. As their military guard, she trusted nothing on alien worlds. "Maybe it's just old equipment. Breaking down," she said. "Could be from one of the early mining operations." Hyunwoo shook his head. "The signals are too organized for that, and too old. My dating equipment says whatever is down there has been here for thousands of years." They walked for another hour until they reached a crack in the ice. It was wider than Hyunwoo expected, big enough for a person to fall through. He shined his light down into the darkness but could not see the bottom. "This is it," So-young said, checking her scanner. "The signals are coming from directly below us." The crack was not natural. Hyunwoo could see that someone or something had cut through the ice. The edges were too smooth, too perfect. He had seen similar cuts in ancient ruins on Earth, but those were made with tools he understood. "We need rope," Ji-hai said. She was already pulling climbing gear from her pack. "If we're going down there, we do it safely." One by one, they descended into the crack. The ice walls around them glowed with a strange blue light that seemed to come from inside the ice itself. Hyunwoo had never seen anything like it. He scraped a sample into a collection bottle. "The air is getting warmer," Daeho said. "That's impossible. We're going deeper into the ice, not closer to any heat source." So-young checked her instruments. "I'm reading oxygen down here. Not much, but enough to breathe if we had to." They dropped down for what felt like forever. Hyunwoo's arms burned from holding the rope, but he kept going. The blue glow got brighter as they went deeper. When he looked at the ice walls, he could see shapes carved into them. They looked like letters or symbols, but not from any language he knew. "Look at this," he called to the others. He pressed his gloved hand against one of the carvings. The symbol pulsed with light when he touched it, like it was alive. "Don't touch anything else," Ji-hai warned. "We don't know what might happen." Finally, they reached the bottom of the crack. They stood on a ledge of ice that opened into a huge cavern. Hyunwoo shined his light into the space and gasped. The cavern was enormous, bigger than any building he had ever seen, and it was not empty. In the center of the cavern stood a city, not ruins, not broken stones, but a complete city with tall buildings that reached toward the ceiling. Lights glowed, in windows like people still lived there. The buildings were strange, curved like they had grown instead of being built. "This is not possible," Daeho whispered. "Nothing like this should exist here." So-young was frantically checking her equipment. "The city is giving off heat and power, lots of power. It's like it's still active." The 4 humans stood at the edge of the cavern, staring at the impossible sight. The city was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. The buildings flowed into each other like water, but they also had sharp angles that seemed to cut through space itself. "We have to go down there," Hyunwoo said. His voice shook with excitement. "This could be the greatest discovery in human history." "We should call for backup first," Ji said. "Report what we found." "No." Hyunwoo was already looking for a way down to the city. "If we call Earth now, they'll send a whole fleet. They'll turn this into a military operation. This needs to be handled by scientists first." They found a path that spiraled down the cavern wall. It was carved from the ice and rock, with steps that were too small for human feet. Whoever made this path was shorter than humans, but they walked on 2 legs like people did. As they got closer to the city, more details became clear. The buildings were not just curved. They pulsed gently like a heartbeat. The light that came from them was not electric. It was organic, like the glow from deep-sea creatures on Earth. "The air is breathable here," So Young announced, checking her instruments again. "I don't understand how, but we could take our helmets off if we wanted to." "Keep them on," Jihai ordered. "We don't take any chances." They reached the edge of the city and stopped. Up close, the buildings were even stranger. The walls seemed to be made of something that was not quite metal and not quite stone. When Hyunwoo touched one wall, it was warm and had a texture like skin. "There's writing here," he said, pointing to symbols carved near what looked like a doorway. The symbols were similar to the ones in the ice tunnel, but more complex. They seemed to tell a story, but he could not read it. In the center of the city stood the tallest building. It was shaped like a spiral that twisted up toward the cavern ceiling. Lights moved up and down the spiral like elevators, but there were no cables or machinery that they could see. "We start with that building," Hyunwoo decided. "If anyone is still here, that's where they would be." As they walked through the streets of the city, their footsteps echoed strangely. The sound bounced back from the buildings, but it also seemed to travel through them. The city was listening to them. So Young's scanner started beeping rapidly. "I'm picking up movement," she said. "Something big in the central building." They all stopped and looked at each other. They had found a city that should not exist, on a moon where nothing could live. And now something was moving inside it. "We keep going," Hyunwoo said. "We came here to make discoveries. This is what discovery looks like." They walked toward the spiral building, not knowing that they were about to meet the last survivors of a civilization that had been waiting 50,000 years for humans to find them. The streets of the city felt wrong under their feet. Hyunwoo looked down and saw that the ground was not made of stone or metal. It looked like it had been grown, with patterns that reminded him of tree rings or muscle fibers. When he knelt down and touched it, the surface was warm. "This whole city is alive," So Young said, staring at her scanner. "I mean really alive. These buildings have heartbeats." Daeho stopped walking and pressed his ear against the nearest wall. "She's right. I can hear something like breathing inside these walls." Jihai kept her weapon ready as they moved deeper into the city. "Alive how? Like plants? Like animals?" "I don't know," So Young admitted. "My equipment has never seen anything like this before." The buildings around them were all different, but they followed the same strange rules. They curved and twisted in ways that should have made them fall down, but they stood perfectly straight. Some buildings seemed to float above the ground with no support at all. As they walked, Hyunwoo noticed that the buildings were watching them. Not with eyes, but with something else. Patches of wall would glow brighter when they passed by. Like the city was tracking their movement. "Look at this," Daeho called out. He stood in front of a building that had transparent walls. Through the clear material, they could see the inside was full of strange machines. The machines moved on their own, reaching out with metal arms to touch and adjust each other. "Robots?" Jihai asked. "Maybe," Hyunwoo said. "Or maybe something else." They continued toward the central spiral building. The closer they got, the more complex the city became. Some buildings had gardens on their roofs, but the plants were not like anything from Earth. They glowed with soft colors and moved without any wind. Other buildings had pools of liquid that was not water. The liquid was thick and silver, and it flowed upward instead of down. Small creatures swam in the pools, but they disappeared whenever the humans got too close. "How long has this place been here?" So Young wondered out loud. "My dating equipment says at least 50,000 years, Hyunwoo replied. "Maybe longer." "That's impossible," Daeho said. 50,000 years ago, humans were still living in caves on Earth. We barely knew how to make fire. When they reached the spiral building, they found an entrance that was clearly meant for them. The doorway was exactly the right height for humans, even though all the other doorways in the city were smaller. "That's strange," Jihai noted. "Why would they make one door our size?" "Maybe they knew we would come," Hyunwoo suggested. Inside the spiral building, everything was different. The walls were smooth and white, and they glowed with gentle light. There were no stairs but ramps that curved upward through the center of the building. As they climbed the ramps, they passed rooms, full of incredible things. One room held floating crystals that sang when they passed by. Another room had walls covered in moving pictures that showed places none of them recognized. But the most amazing room was near the top of the building. It was enormous and circular, with a high ceiling that was covered in stars. But these were not painted stars. They moved and twinkled like real stars in space. "It's a map," Hyunwoo breathed. "A map of the galaxy." In the center of the room stood dozens of tall glass containers. Each container was filled with a glowing liquid, and floating in each container was a figure that looked almost human. "Are they dead?" So Young whispered. Hyunwoo approached one of the containers carefully. The figure inside was taller than a human, with longer arms and a larger head. Its skin was pale blue and seemed to glow from within. Its eyes were closed, but it looked peaceful, like it was sleeping. They're in some kind of suspended animation, he realized. They're still alive. Daeho counted the containers. There are 43 of them, all different but all similar to humans. Ji-hai walked around the room checking for threats. Who are they? And what are they doing here? Before anyone could answer, the star map on the ceiling began to move. The stars rearranged themselves to show Earth's solar system as it looked from Europa. Then the map zoomed in to show Earth itself, but not as it looked now. "That's Earth 50,000 years ago," Hyunwoo said in amazement. "Look at the continents, they're in completely different positions." The map showed other things too. It showed the paths of asteroids and comets. It showed the growth and death of stars. It showed things that humans had only learned about in the last few hundred years. They were watching us, So Young realized. For thousands and thousands of years they were watching Earth and learning about humans. Suddenly one of the containers began to glow brighter. The liquid inside started to bubble and swirl. The figure floating inside opened its eyes. "Something's happening," Ji-hai said, raising her weapon. The container slowly opened with a soft, hissing sound. The liquid drained away and the figure inside began to move. It stepped out of the container and stood before them, dripping with the glowing liquid. The creature was beautiful in an alien way. It was definitely not human, but it was close enough that they could recognize intelligence in its large dark eyes. When it looked at them, Hyunwoo felt like it could see into his thoughts. The creature opened its mouth and made sounds that were not quite words. Then, it pressed its hand to its forehead and closed its eyes. Suddenly, images appeared in Hyunwoo's mind, not his own thoughts but pictures sent from the creature. The images showed a planet covered in beautiful cities like this one. They showed people like this creature living in peace and happiness. Then the images changed to show darkness coming from space. Great black ships that destroyed everything they touched. The creature showed them images of war and destruction. Its people fighting desperately against the darkness but losing. Finally, it showed the last survivors fleeing to different worlds, including this frozen moon. "You're refugees," Hyunwoo said out loud. The creature nodded. Then it sent more images. These showed Earth, but from space. They showed human cities and human technology. They showed humans building ships and traveling to other worlds. The last image was the most surprising. It showed humans and creatures like this one working together, building something incredible among the stars. "You've been waiting for us." So, Young gasped. The creature nodded again. Then it pointed to the star map on the ceiling. The stars moved again, showing something new. At the edge of the galaxy, dark shapes were moving. They were heading toward Earth. "The darkness is coming back," Hyunwoo understood. "And you think humans can help you fight it?" The creature made more sounds, urgent this time. It pointed to the other containers, then to the star map, then to the humans themselves. "It's trying to tell us something important," Ji-hai said. "But what?" The creature walked to a wall covered in symbols and pressed its hand against them. The symbols began to glow, and more images filled their minds. These images were harder to understand, full of science and mathematics that was far beyond human knowledge. But one thing was clear. The creature's people had been preparing for this moment for 50,000 years. They had been waiting for humans to develop enough technology to find them. Now that humans were here, it was time to wake the others and begin the real work. The Boar creature looked at each of them in turn, then walked back to the containers. It pressed its hands against several of them, and they began to glow and bubble like the first one. "They're all waking up," Daeho said in wonder. Hyunwoo realized that their simple exploration mission had just become something much more important. They had not just found an ancient city, they had found humanity's destiny waiting for them in the ice, and that destiny was about to begin. The first creature to wake up was different from the others. While the other containers held figures that looked weak and fragile, this one moved with purpose and strength. When it stepped out of its container, it did not stumble or need time to recover. Hyunwoo decided to call the creature Kael'tar, because that was the closest his human mouth could come to the sounds it made when referring to itself. Kael'tar was taller than any human, with long, thin fingers and skin that changed color based on its emotions. When Kael'tar was calm, its skin was pale blue. When it was excited or worried, patches of silver and gold appeared across its arms and face. Hyunwoo realized this was how its people communicated with each other, using colors and patterns instead of just words. Kael'tar pressed its hands against Hyunwoo's temples, and suddenly he could understand everything. Not through words, but through images and feelings that appeared directly in his mind. The creature's people called themselves the Thyrani. They came from a world that orbited a star so far away that humans had never seen it. Their civilization was older than anything humans could imagine, but they had made terrible mistakes. Through the mental link, Kael'tar showed Hyunwoo what had happened to their homeworld. The Thyrani had become so advanced that they stopped, changing and growing. They created perfect cities and perfect technology, but they lost the ability to adapt when new problems appeared. "You became too perfect," Hyunwoo said out loud, understanding what he was seeing. "You couldn't change anymore." Kael'tar's skin flashed with sad purple colors. Through the mental link, it showed him more images. A great enemy had come from the darkness between galaxies, something that consumed entire civilizations. The Thyrani had fought this enemy with all their perfect technology, but they could not adapt fast enough to win. "The Devourers," Kael'tar finally spoke in broken human words. "They consume all. They learn all. They adapt faster than we could." The surviving Thyrani had fled to different worlds throughout the galaxy. Some went to gas giants, some to desert planets, and some, like Kael'tar's group, came to frozen moons where they could hide in the ice. But they had not just been hiding. They had been watching and waiting. Kael'tar showed them images of Earth throughout human history. The Thyrani had been observing humans for tens of thousands of years, watching them develop from simple hunters to space travelers. "We saw something in humans that we had lost," Kael'tar explained, its skin glowing with hopeful green patterns. "Humans make mistakes. Humans fight each other. Humans create chaos." So Young looked confused. "Those sound like bad things." "No." Kael'tar's skin brightened. "Chaos is adaptation, mistakes are learning, fighting creates strength. Humans never became perfect like we did. You stayed alive." Through the mental link, Hyunwoo saw what Kael'tar meant. Human history was full of wars and disasters and terrible mistakes. But each time humans faced a problem, they found new ways to solve it. They never stopped changing and growing and adapting. "The Devourers cannot adapt to chaos," Kael'tar continued. "They understand perfection. They consume order, but chaos confuses them." Daeho was looking at the star map on the ceiling. "Are they coming back? The Devourers?" Kael'tar's skin went dark with fear. It pressed its hand against a wall panel, and the star map changed to show the edge of their galaxy. Dark shapes were moving there, too far away to see clearly, but definitely heading toward the center of the galaxy where Earth was located. "They return every 50,000 years, Kael'tar said. "They consume one galaxy, then move to the next. Now they come back to finish what they started." Ji-hai stepped forward. "How long do we have? 1 of your years? Maybe 2. The humans looked at each other in shock. 2 years to prepare for an enemy that had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than humanity. But Kael'tar was not finished, explaining. It showed them more images through the mental link. Over the thousands of years that the Thirani had been watching humans, they had done more than just observe. We helped, Kael'tar admitted, its skin showing embarrassed orange patterns. Small helps, quiet helps. We never made humans dependent on us, but we guided. Hyun-woo saw images of crucial moments in human history: the development of agriculture, the invention of writing, the discovery of electricity and computers and space travel. In each image there were subtle signs that someone had helped humans make those discoveries just a little bit faster. You've been preparing us, he realized. For 50,000 years, you've been preparing humanity to fight your war. Not our war, Kael'tar corrected, its skin flashing with urgent red patterns. Everyone's war. The Devourers do not stop. If they consume Earth and humanity, they will have everything they need to consume the rest of the galaxy. The other Thirani in the containers were beginning to wake up, but something was wrong. As each container opened, the figures inside were weak and barely able to stand. Many of them collapsed as soon as they tried to leave their containers. What's happening to them? So Young asked. Kael'tar's skin went gray with sorrow. Too long in the deep sleep. Most of my people are too weak to wake properly. The long waiting has damaged us. Only a few Thirani were able to wake up completely. The others had to go back into their containers to stay alive. Out of 43 containers, only 7 Thirani could function. 7 of us, Kael'tar said sadly. 7 Thirani and 4 humans against the Devourers. Not just 4 humans, Hyun-woo said firmly. All of humanity. We'll warn Earth. We'll prepare everyone. But Kael'tar was already shaking its head, skin flashing with warning colors. The Thirani tried to warn others before. Other civilizations in our galaxy. They did not believe until it was too late. Some surrendered without fighting. Some fought, but used the wrong strategies. What makes you think humans will be different? Ji-hai asked. Kael'tar looked directly at her, and for the first time since waking up, its skin showed bright, hopeful yellow patterns. Because humans are impossible, it said simply. Humans do things that should not work. Humans win fights they should lose. Humans adapt faster than any species we have ever studied. It showed them images of human history again, but this time focusing on moments when humans had overcome impossible odds. Small groups of humans defeating much larger armies. Humans surviving in environments that should have killed them. Humans solving problems that their own experts said were unsolvable. Every time humans should fail, you find new ways to succeed, Kael'tar continued. This is why we chose you. This is why we waited. Hyun-woo felt the weight of 50,000 years of preparation settling on his shoulders. An entire civilization had spent millennia preparing humanity for this moment. What do we do now? He asked. Kael'tar walked to another wall panel and activated it. The entire room filled with holographic displays showing Thirani technology, weapon designs, and battle strategies. Now we teach you everything we know, Kael'tar said. And we hope that humans can do what the Thirani could not. The 7 awakened Thirani gathered around the humans, their skin patterns flickering with determination. Outside, the impossible city continued to pulse with life, its organic technology ready to serve its new human partners. And somewhere at the edge of the galaxy, the Devourers sensed the awakening and began to move faster toward Earth. Kael'tar led them deeper into the spiral building, to rooms that the humans had not seen before. These rooms were filled with what looked like living computers, walls covered in organic circuits that pulsed with information. This is our memory center, Kael'tar explained, its skin showing serious blue patterns. Everything we learned about the Devourers is stored here. When Kael'tar touched one of the walls, the room filled with holographic images. But these were not the peaceful images they had seen before. These showed horror. The first images showed the Devourers' ships. They were enormous, bigger than Earth's moon, and they looked like they had grown instead of being built. The ships were black and twisted, with tentacle-like extensions that reached out to grab smaller vessels. Each devourer ship is alive, Kael'tar said. They eat planets and stars to power themselves. When they consume a civilization, they learn everything that civilization knew. Hyunwoo watched in horror as the images showed devourer ships surrounding a planet. The tentacles reached down to the surface and began pulling up cities, forests, and oceans. Everything went into the ships, which grew larger with each meal. They don't just destroy, So Young realized. They absorb. Yes, Kael'tar's skin went dark red with anger. Every species they consume makes them smarter and stronger. They have been doing this for millions of years. They know the strategies and technologies of thousands of different civilizations. Daeho was studying the technical readouts that appeared alongside the images. How many ships are coming? Our scouts detected 12 ships at the edge of your galaxy, Kael'tar replied. But each ship is as powerful as the entire Thirani fleet was at its peak. Ji-hai was calculating in her head. Earth's combined military forces couldn't handle one ship that size, let alone 12. But Kael'tar was already changing the display to show different images. These showed the Thirani at the height of their power, with vast fleets of elegant ships and weapons that could destroy stars. We had superior technology, Kael'tar said. We had perfect strategies. We had numerical advantages. And we still lost. The images showed the final battle of the Thirani civilization. Their perfect silver ships fought desperately against the twisted black devourer vessels. For every devourer ship they destroyed, 2 more appeared. The Thirani weapons were powerful, but the devourers adapted to each attack. They learned faster than we could change our tactics, Kael'tar explained. Every weapon we used, they found a defense. Every strategy we tried, they created a counter-strategy. Yunwoo was beginning to understand the real scope of the problem. So normal warfare won't work. Correct. The devourers are too good at adapting to normal tactics. They expect civilizations to fight in logical, organized ways. Kael'tar changed the display again, this time showing detailed analyses of human warfare throughout history. The Thirani had been studying human military tactics for thousands of years. But humans do not fight logically, Kael'tar continued, its skin brightening with interest. Humans use deception. Humans sacrifice pieces to win larger victories. Humans change their tactics in the middle of battle. The display showed famous human battles where smaller, weaker armies had defeated larger, stronger ones through unexpected strategies. It showed human generals who had won wars by doing exactly what their enemies thought they would never do. The devourers cannot predict chaos, Kael'tar said. They cannot adapt to strategies that change faster than they can analyze them. So Young was studying the technical displays. But we still need weapons that can actually hurt them. Our current technology isn't anywhere close to powerful enough. That is why we prepared, Kael'tar replied. It touched another section of the wall and new displays appeared. These showed Thirani weapons and technology, but modified in ways that made them look almost human. For 50,000 years, we have been designing hybrid technology, Kael'tar explained. Thirani science combined with human adaptability, weapons that require chaos to function properly. The weapons looked like nothing humans had ever seen. They were organic like Thirani technology, but they had sharp, aggressive angles that felt distinctly human. Some looked like they changed shape depending on how they were held. These weapons will not work for us, Kael'tar said sadly. We became too ordered, too predictable, but they are designed specifically for human minds. Hyunwoo was looking at what appeared to be a spaceship design. The ship looked like it was alive, with sections that moved and flowed like muscles. But it also had human-style weapons and controls. How many of these can you build? He asked. The city can produce 1,000 ships in 6 months, Kael'tar replied. But that is not enough. It's a start, Ji-hai said. Earth has shipyards too. If we can get the designs back home, we can build more. But Kael'tar was shaking its head, skin showing worried orange patterns. There is something else you must understand. The Thirani technology does not just require human operators. It requires specific human genetic patterns. The display changed to show human DNA sequences alongside Thirani biological patterns. Certain sections of human genetic code were highlighted in bright colors. We did not just observe human development, Keltar admitted, its skin showing embarrassed colors. We occasionally influenced it, very carefully, very subtly. So Young stared at the genetic displays. You modified human evolution. Not modified, guided. We helped certain genetic traits become more common, traits that would be compatible with our technology. Hyunwoo felt a chill that had nothing to do with Europa's cold. What percentage of humans have these traits? Approximately 12% of your current population, Kael'tar replied. About 1 billion humans can interface with Thyrani hybrid technology. The implications were staggering. The Thyrani had been secretly influencing human evolution for millennia, preparing a specific portion of humanity to serve as warriors in an ancient war. That's still not enough people to crew 1,000 ships, Daeho pointed out. No, Kael'tar agreed. But remember, humans adapt. Once some humans learn to use the technology, they will teach others. Humans have always been excellent at sharing knowledge and developing improvements. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the city. The organic walls pulsed with urgent red light, and Kael'tar's skin went pure white with shock. What's happening? Jihai demanded. Kael'tar was already running toward another control panel. When it touched the wall, the room filled with images from space. The displays showed the outer edge of Earth's solar system, near Neptune. Dark shapes were moving there. 12 massive objects that looked like twisted metal and organic tissue fused together. They were still far away, but they were definitely heading toward Earth. They have arrived early, Kael'tar said, its skin cycling rapidly through colors of fear and determination. The Devourers are already here. The displays showed Earth's orbital defenses activating. Human warships were moving to intercept the approaching threat. But even on the screen, it was obvious how tiny the human ships looked compared to the Devourer vessels. How long until they reach Earth? Hyunwoo asked. At their current speed, 6 months, Kael'tar replied. But they may accelerate if they detect resistance. Jihee was already activating her communication equipment. I need to warn Earth. Command immediately. Wait, Kael'tar said urgently. If you send normal radio signals, the Devourers will detect them. They will learn about this city and about our preparations. Then how do we communicate with Earth? Kael'tar led them to another room where a single Thyrani sat connected to a large organic console. This Thyrani was different from the others. Its body was partially merged with the technology around it. This is our deep space communicator, Kael'tar explained. It can send messages to Earth through quantum channels that the Devourers cannot intercept. The communicator Thyrani looked at the humans with large, sad eyes. Its skin was pale and translucent, showing the technology that had grown into its body over thousands of years. Tell Earth what they need to know, Kael'tar instructed. But tell them carefully. Panic will not help anyone. As Jihai began composing her message to Earth's military command, Hyunwoo realized that their discovery mission had become something entirely different. They were no longer explorers finding ancient ruins. They were humanity's advanced scouts in a war that would determine the survival of their entire species. And they had less than 6 months to prepare. The next 5 months passed in a blur of desperate preparation. Earth's governments had initially refused to believe Jihai's reports about the Devourer threat. But when their deep space telescopes confirmed the approach of 12 massive alien ships, panic spread across the planet. Hyunwoo had been right to worry about military interference. Within days of the first confirmation, Europa was surrounded by Earth's entire battle fleet. Marines had taken over the Thyrani city, and scientists in protective suits were studying everything they could reach. But the Thyrani technology refused to work for most humans. The organic ships that Kael'tar had promised remained dormant, their bio-neural interfaces rejecting anyone who tried to connect with them. We need the right people, Kael'tar kept insisting to the Earth military commanders. Not your best pilots or strongest soldiers. We need humans with the correct genetic compatibility. Earth scientists had spent months testing volunteers, but progress was slow. Only a few hundred humans had shown any ability to interface with Thyrani technology. and even they could barely make the systems respond. Everything changed when the Devourers reached Jupiter. Hyunwoo stood in the city's command center watching the displays as Earth's patrol fleets engaged the enemy. The human ships were brave and well-armed, but they were like insects attacking elephants. The Devourer ships moved with purpose through the outer solar system. Their tentacle-like weapons reached out to grab human vessels, pulling them into processing chambers where they were broken down into raw materials. Within hours, the Devourers had consumed half of Earth's outer defenses. "They're learning," Kyle-Tar observed sadly. "Every human tactic, every weapon design. They adapt faster than your military can change strategies." But something unexpected happened during the battle. A young human pilot named Minho, flying a captured Devourer scout ship, managed to destroy one of the larger vessels by ramming it at exactly the right angle. The destruction was impossible according to all tactical analysis, but it worked. "Chaos," Kyle-Tar said, its skin brightening with hope. "Pure human chaos." The Thirani communicator sent word to Earth. "Find more humans like Minho. People who made decisions that seemed wrong but somehow worked. People who ignored rules and followed instincts." Earth's recruitment centers were overwhelmed with volunteers, but the Thirani genetic scanners were very specific. They were not looking for the best and brightest. They were looking for humans whose DNA contained the ancient modifications that the Thirani had carefully introduced over thousands of years. The scanners found truck drivers who could instinctively navigate impossible routes. They found artists who painted pictures that somehow predicted future events. They found children who played video games in ways that broke the game's programming. "These are your pilots," Kyle-Tar told the Earth commanders. "These are the humans who can use our ships." The Earth commanders were skeptical, but they had no choice. The Devourers were already past Jupiter and heading toward Mars. In 3 weeks, they would reach Earth. The first human pilot to successfully bond with the Thirani bioship was a 17-year-old girl named Seo Jin, who had never flown anything more complex than a car. But when she placed her hands on the bioship's neural interface, the entire vessel came alive around her. "It feels like it's part of me," she reported through the communication system. "Like it's reading my thoughts and responding to them." Within days, hundreds of similar connections were being made. The humans who could pilot Thirani ships were not the people anyone expected. They were teenagers and artists, mechanics and street performers, people whose minds worked in ways that formal education had never touched. Hyunwoo watched in amazement as these unlikely pilots took to space in ships that seemed to dance rather than fly. The bioships moved like living creatures, twisting and flowing through space in patterns that confused the Devourer targeting systems. But the real breakthrough came when Kyle-Tar revealed the final secret. "The Thirani are not originally from another star system," it admitted to Hyunwoo privately. "We are from Earth." The revelation was staggering. Through the mental link, Kyle-Tar showed Hyunwoo the true history. Millions of years ago, an early human-like species had developed advanced technology and left Earth to explore the galaxy. They had evolved into the Thirani, becoming more perfect and organized with each generation. "But perfection made us weak," Kyle-Tar explained. "We lost the chaos that had made us strong. When the Devourers came, we could not adapt fast enough to survive." "So you came back to Earth to find what you had lost," Hyunwoo realized. "We came back to our younger selves, to the humans who still carried the wild creativity that we had evolved away from." This knowledge changed everything. The Thirani technology was not alien at all. It was human technology that had evolved along a different path. That was why certain humans could interface with it so naturally. The final battle began when the Devourers reached Earth's orbit. 12 massive ships surrounded the planet, their tentacles reaching down toward the surface to begin harvesting. Earth's combined fleets rose to meet them, but this time they were not alone. Hundreds of Thirani bioships flew alongside the human vessels piloted by the genetic descendants of the original Thirani. The battle was unlike anything in human history. The bioships fought with a combination of advanced technology and pure instinct. They used weapons that changed their function in the middle of combat. They flew in formations that made no logical sense but somehow worked perfectly. SEO Jin, flying the lead bioship, reported what all the pilots were experiencing. "The ships are not just responding to what I want them to do," she said. "They're anticipating what I'm going to want them to do. They're thinking ahead of my thoughts." The Devourers tried to adapt to the human tactics, but they could not keep up with the constant changes. Every time they developed a counter-strategy, the humans had already moved on to something completely different. Hyun-woo watched from Europa as the tide of battle turned. The bioships were not just fighting, they were teaching the regular human ships new tactics. Human pilots who had never seen Thirani technology were suddenly flying with impossible skill. "Your species is learning in real time," Kael'tar observed with wonder. "This is what we could never do. You adapt faster than the enemy can respond." The Devourers began to retreat, but the human fleet pursued them. The bioships had awakened something in the regular human pilots, a kind of intuitive understanding of three-dimensional combat that went beyond all their training. In the end, it was not superior technology that won the battle. It was pure human stubbornness. When the Devourers tried to escape, the human pilots refused to let them go. They chased the massive ships to the edge of the solar system and destroyed them one by one. The last Devourer ship was brought down by a coordinated attack from 50 bioships, all piloted by humans who had learned to think as one organism while maintaining their individual chaos. When the battle was over, Hyun-woo found Kael'tar standing in the city's central chamber, its skin showing colors of amazement and gratitude. "The Devourers are extinct," Kael'tar said. "For the first time in millions of years, they are completely gone." "What happens now?" Hyun-woo asked. Kael'tar gestured to the displays showing space around Earth. The bioships were already being studied and replicated. Human engineers were learning to grow ships instead of building them. Human pilots were teaching each other the intuitive skills that came naturally to the genetically compatible few. "Now humanity becomes what the Thyrani should have been," Kael'tar said. "A species that combines advanced technology with the chaos necessary to keep growing and adapting." 6 months later, the first human bioships left the solar system to explore other galaxies. They carried mixed crews of humans and the few surviving Thyrani, working together to seek out other civilizations that might need protection from future threats. Hyun-woo remained on Europa, serving as the first ambassador. Between humanity and the Thyrani, the impossible city had become humanity's first interstellar capital, a place where two species could work together to guard against the darkness between the stars. Sometimes he stood on the observation deck and watched human children playing in the biogardens that grew throughout the city. These children had been born with the genetic modifications that allowed them to interface naturally with Thyrani technology, but they were still completely human in their unpredictability and creativity. They were the future that both species had been working toward for 50,000 years. Beings who combined the best of order and chaos, technology and intuition, planning and adaptation. And somewhere in the depths of space, new threats might someday emerge. But humanity would be ready, carrying the combined knowledge of two civilizations and the wild creativity that had saved them both. The explorer who had gone looking for ancient ruins had instead found humanity's destiny waiting in the ice, and that destiny was just beginning.